When Jim Carrey was young, he was poor, very poor, and struggling to get a single part. He wrote himself a $10 million check and dated it to 3 years in the future. He looked at it every day and knew one day he would cash it. 3 years later, he was chosen for the role of Dumb and Dumber and learned that he would in fact make $10 million for that part. Something familiar holds true for Michael Jordan, Martin Luther King, Elon Musk, and Mark Cuban, to name a few. What exception do these and the other extremely successful people around the world have? Just one simple thing: belief. It is their immortal belief in themselves that pushes them to get up again and ever again. Trainings Wiki and team Ritwik Pandey will take this opportunity to explain with examples what a belief is. A belief is a script that is formed in our own minds. Our belief influences how we see the world and dictates our way of thinking and behaving. It is the power of our thought process that determines the kind of person we are going to be. Something that we believe strongly becomes our reality. If we believe we are destined to be successful, we will think and act in a manner that leads to success. Our belief pumps confidence in our mind and soul. Our limited belief can only bring a limited outcome. A belief has power to shape our behavior, but limitations to belief are internal, imposed mostly by our own limited mind, and they are called self-limiting beliefs. It is these beliefs that impede our progress in exploiting our potential. Most people like to think they lack the ability to get or accomplish what they want, but in reality, it is the lack of strong will that makes us do something or the other and succeed. It was Henry Ford who said, "If you believe you can do a thing or you believe you cannot, in either case, you are probably right." How true it is, isn't it? It's time we challenged our false beliefs, put a stop to believing we can't, change our beliefs and replace them with positive ones. Initially, we may encounter difficulty in doing this. We may begin by examining all the beliefs that we have and convincing ourselves that there are no proofs that our false beliefs are true. Start acting as if these beliefs were not true at all. Behaving consistently in this way will make us a different and surely a better person. Let's now, as promised, see some examples of extreme self-beliefs. Prior to the 6th May 1954, no one had ever run a 4-minute mile. The general consensus around the world was that it is physically impossible to do so. Experts stated that human body was just not capable of it. They even went as far to insist that his lungs may explode and he may certainly die. This belief rang true for decades, and during this time, hundreds of athletes continued to fail to break through this barrier. Come May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister ran the miracle in 3 minutes, 59 seconds and 4 milliseconds. By doing this, he didn't only break a world record, but he broke a limiting belief in the minds of hundreds of athletes. The 4-minute mile was now possible. In the following years, the power of belief showed. As athletes trained and had a new achievable goal, more and more of them began to break the 4-minute mark. Fast forward to present day, running a 4-minute mile is now a commonplace. When you have the will and believe you can do something, you are going to do it. As simple as that. Our next story is amazing and pretty encouraging as well. It concerns Russian weightlifter Vasily Alexeyev. Prior to the 1970s, no one had ever lifted 500 pounds overhead. Vasily had the current world record, now failing to break to 500-pound mark several times. One fine day, as Vasily was preparing for a lift in an important competition, his trainers told him that he would be lifting a weight that he has already lifted before. Vasily stepped up and lifted the weight. It wasn't until after the lift that he realized his trainers deceived him and he actually lifted 500.5 pounds for the new world record. Though his deception, his trainers erased the limiting belief in his mind that, like the 4-minute mile, was most responsible for him not being able to break the 500 mark. Once the 500-pound limitation was removed from his mind, Wesley went on to lift more than 560 pounds overhead. This is an incredible example of instantaneous power of belief. Kiley Menard is extraordinary. He was born with congenital amputation and has done more with his life than most people will ever do. But beyond his incredible achievements such as climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and competing in an MMA fight, he is an incredible example of the power of belief. When Kiley was growing up, he wanted to wrestle. When he started off, it was really very bad for him. He lost every match for a year and a half, almost 35 matches in a row. Over and over, people were telling Kiley, a guy with no arms, legs, will never win a match in wrestling. And Kiley bought into that belief for a year and a half and begged his parents to quit. His first win, however, after 35 straight losses, came as a complete shock to Kiley, to the point that he kept pinning the guy and kept letting him up until they stopped the match for a mercy rule. After this one win, he never went back. The next year in 8th grade, he went undefeated and went to the state tournament. He ended his high school career by winning 135 matches, getting invited to nationals and placed 12th in the nation. Truly incredible. The next is Maurice Goodman, or the Miracle Man. When Maurice was 35, he was in a horrific solo plane crash while attempting to land one afternoon. With his neck broken, spinal cord crushed, and every major muscle in his body destroyed, Maurice was no longer able to perform any bodily functions except to blink his eyes. Doctors told him he would never walk or even be able to breathe without a respirator again. Without the use of his body, Maurice still had his mind intact, and according to him, that was all he needed. Maurice relentlessly visualized himself walking out of that hospital every day and never allowed a thought to come in his mind that deferred him away from that goal. 8 months later, he walked out of the hospital. Doctors have no explanation. Maurice does. He says, man becomes what he thinks about. That would be all from our end for now. Stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.